Hello and welcome to this video. In this video I will explain you the L building system and the O building system inside PlanPal. In the previous video we already went through the boundary building system and L building system and these two corridor and no corridor circulation system. I recommend to watch them before this because we will modify this algorithm what we created before. So let's start with the L building system. It's much more complex than the previous ones, mostly because the output are not just one straight buildings rather than an L-shaped buildings. And let me show you how does it work. By default it will generate L buildings, but they touch each other, so basically a whole circle. But if I set the building distance, for example, into 15, we will have L-shaped buildings with distance between them. Maybe let's say 10 because this one is very small. Okay, as you can see, in the L-shaped buildings, we already have corridors and staircases. So that's why it's more complex for the L building system, and that's true for the O building systems as well. We cannot use the circulation systems. It will be default. It will be a corridor circulation system by default, but we don't have to set it here. And also, if you compare the inputs, in the beginning we have the unit depth 0 and 1 and corridor width and the is open corridor values, which is might be already familiar. Here we have the unit depths and the corridor width, that's exactly the same, so we can have again 0 depth corridors or any other values. And also we can set it to open corridor, so at the end it will look like an open corridor. But after that we have some other more complex inputs, the L building length and minimum I building length. So the L building length by default is not used, so it means that after the building distance the rest of the L shape will be one L buildings. But if we set here a specific number, let's say 40, then we will have 40-meter long L buildings from each corner, and the rest of them will be regular straight buildings. And for those buildings we can use again the circulation system and the already familiar workflow. So let's try this. Here these outputs, these 10 outputs, are the one that came this end part of the L shape. So just put it here, and it might not work for all of them, yes, because you will see these are way too small, so that's why it couldn't draw out buildings, but where we have place for a regular building it will draw out. And also we have another input for these I-shaped buildings. Yeah, these are the straight I-shaped buildings, because we can further divide them if they are too big. Well, this is not the case now, but let's say I remove the building distance, so all the L-shaped buildings will be bigger, and the L-shaped building should be smaller. Okay, let's say 28. And in this way we left with almost reasonable size I-shaped buildings, except here. I will simply scale this whole curve for that now. just for the sake of example. Here you go. And now if we set the value into minimum I building lengths, it can be further divided into smaller I buildings. Well, yes, right now you can see they are further divided. This value is basically the same when we converted a building complex into building and we had this minimum building length. It was also divided here, the building complex, into smaller buildings. Here it's the same. And all these buildings now come from this output. So we can use again. We can use again for this corridor circulation system and the already known algorithm. But don't miss out the L shapes because these are also here as an output. We can simply put them next to the regular I shape. We just have to skip the circulation system part because these already have circulation. Yes, and now we have a big building. No, sorry, we have at least 28 buildings, but all of them are right next to each other, but they have separate circulation system. Okay, so this is what this L building length and minimum I building length input do. But for now, let's go back to the smaller site. And for a more reasonable building, we should delete these inputs and again use the building distance input. And now we just simply have 6 L-shaped buildings with corridors and staircases. What we can set here, the staircase width and depth, is might be already familiar, and the staircase flip and max stair distance. Well, yes, this is very important. By default, it's also 25. It's exactly the same than here with the corridor circulation system. Maybe remember how many the maximum distance from every point of the corridor to be able to reach a staircase. This is what we can set there and here as well. So let's say it should be 10 meter, for example, instead of the 25. And yes, now we have much more staircases at every point. And in the corner, these are always staircases by default because it's a location where sun really can't get there. So it's not possible to put a unit here. So by default, these are staircases in this corner. These are dark corners, I would say. And yes, a staircase flip does exactly the same as previously. It puts on the other side of the building all the staircases, and the width and depth also familiar inputs. Yes, the width is this distance of the staircase and the depth is the opposite. Maybe the 4 meters will be a little bit small, but let's do 6. Okay, now we don't have any I buildings output because we didn't use the L building length input, so the whole building only contains just large L buildings, which are here. We have 6 of them. We can simply use them to create our 3D buildings and unit distribution and so on. As you can see, we have a complete building at the end. Yes, of course, now we have these 32 square meters buildings, but this is because we set this 10-meter building, because we set this 10-meter max stair distance, which is not really reasonable. So let's remove it and use the default 25 values. And in this case, we will have much more reasonable units at the end. Also, let's try this unit depth 0 to set to 0. And also let's try the open corridor, which will be interesting in a way. You can see now we still have dark corners because these corridors are not open corridors, they are closed corridors. But if we use it as an open corridor, the component will know, yes, for example here, that this corner is not dark corner, so they can put units here. Of course, at some place still will be corridors because we need corridors at some point, and if we distribute it, it just happened to be the reasonable here. But yeah, it's after we have 0 unit depths at one of the side and we have open corridor, it's not mandatory to be a staircase in the corner. Of course, we can demonstrate it more if we only need staircases at every 30 meters. We will have less staircase, hopefully. Yes, and now you can see, for example, here was also unnecessary. So our staircases are just there, and we have a nice units at the corner with probably a lot of windows later. So yes, this is how the L building system works. And right after that we have the O building system, which is very similar. Basically the only difference that it doesn't have the building distance input, so it's always, well, not always, most of the time a closed building circulation with staircases and again dark corner staircases and so on. And we can simply use now this one to generate this building. And yes, I told you earlier that not every time it's a closed building. That's because the unit depths 0 and 1 and corridor width can be different inside the building. That's something what I haven't mentioned yet, and true for all the building systems. We can use multiple values here. So let's say multi-line data, and one of the unit depths is 0, and after that 3 has 7 depths, and that's true also for the unit depth 1, and for the corridor also, but not 7, instead 2-meter wide corridor. And let's just use it. You will already see the difference. Yes, we have this part of the building is just 1 unit depth, and here 2 unit depths, and again 1, 2, 2, 2. It can be any pattern that you set. I think in this case it won't work, yes, because right now we have a part, actually 2 parts of the buildings where we only have corridors, and it doesn't make any sense. PlanPal knows that, so we have to correct this with another input, and now it will basically generate 2 separate buildings. But I think this version, what was shown earlier, can be very interesting because here there is possibilities for open corridors. So let's say it's actually open. And also we will see how the staircases changes, because now this corner, what was before a dark corner and therefore a staircase, now can be part of a unit. And the staircase is somewhere here instead. And it's true on the other side as well. And yes, this is how the L building system and the O building system works. In the next video, I will explain the reference line building system. Thank you for watching.